So ಹಾಗಾದ್ರೆ ನೀವೆಲ್ಲ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಮುಂದ್ಗಡೆ ಬಾಕಿ ಬಾಕಿಯವ್ರು ಮುಂದೆ ಬರ್ಬೋದು. So all of you are high school students or middle school? Middle school and high school. So there will be something which will be interesting for children, something for adults. So hopefully I won't make everybody bored. At some point of time, somebody will be interested. Okay. Okay. Have you ever heard in your friend circle or in your relatives people saying that, oh, history is very boring? What is the use of studying history? Something which happened in the past. You should study science and maths. Why should you study history? Yeah, has anybody heard this kind of statements? So please put your hand up. I'll be surprised if you are not heard this. So some of you yourself would have felt this, and some of you would have heard it. It will be very rare if you have not heard it. Now, I think that the reason why they are saying this is because of some mistaken notion. Now, the same people who say, oh, history is very boring, what is there in the past? If they get to know that great-grandfather has left them on site in Baswangudi, what will their reaction be? So history, why do you want history? All useless thing. But suddenly realize that great-grandfather had no thing, and now that property comes to you, it's in Baswangudi. What will be the reaction of the person? They will rush. Oh, my great-grandfather is so great. It's amazing guy. All these things will happen. So when there is inheritance of something physical like wealth, like sight, like money, then we are able to see that inheritance and immediately understand the value of that. If your father or grandfather or mother left you a property or some 10 kg gold, something, then immediately you know their value. Right? Now, they don't realize that that's also part of the history. That's also now. I want to ask you a question. What is the thing that everybody, everywhere in the world, does every day, many times a day, irrespective of the age, irrespective of religion, irrespective of gender? Every day they do this many times a day. What is that? Can you tell me? Every day, everybody does this activity. Talking, okay. One talking. Then eating. Many times a day, this activity they do. Breathing. Then thinking, checking mobile. Now let us from the physical dhyan. Blinking eyes. Drinking water. This we do many times. But there is one more thing that we do every day, which is mental activity. What is that? In the morning, how we wake up on alarm, 6 o'clock alarm. Whether I should get up now, I should snooze. Then you get up, then you say, should I brush my teeth or should I make coffee first? Then you put coffee. Should I drink the coffee first or should I drink the newspaper? Decision making. Everybody, every day in the world, whatever their age, they are always making decisions. Constantly are taking decisions. Some decision or other. It could be some mini decision. It could be a mega decision. There's an old joke. This couple have been married for 40 years. He said, what is the secret of your marriage? You're married for 40 years. So he said, you see, all these small decisions my wife takes, all the big decisions I take. So all the small decisions like which school my son should study, which dance class my daughter should go, all these small decisions the wife takes. Whether India should attack Pakistan, what should be attacked, these small decisions I take. So that's why you have a say happy. So like that, there's a mini decision, there are mega decisions. But decision making. In fact, one famous politician in the past, they were asking him to make a decision, he was pushing it. Then they said, sir, you should take a decision. He said, not to take a decision also is a decision. So, like that, constantly we are taking decisions. Now, what? How do you make good? How do you take good decisions? What is the secret behind good decisions? Huh? Thinking. Okay. Then logic, information. But most surest way of taking good decisions is taking many bad decisions in the past. So all the bad decisions you have taken will teach you to take a good decision now. So at the end of the day, what we are constantly doing in our life is decision making. And what is required for decision making is what has happened in the past. All that has happened in the past helps us take decisions. Right? When we say history, a lot of people think history means something which comes in the history textbook with all the dates and years and what. So, history means from the previous microsecond all the way back to Big Bang is history. Everything is history. From this second, what just went now, back to the creation of the universe, completely everything is history. So when you look at history in that perspective, you know that history is all expansive. So in this way, if you think about it, Sherlock Holmes is a historian. But his history is what has happened in the last 24 hours. You know, he goes to the crime scene and does detection. So that is only last 24 hours. Shankaracharya is a historian because he looks at all the previous philosophers, what they have said, looks at the interpretation. He gives a new interpretation based on all the old things. So Shankaracharya is a historian. So similarly, Narendra Modi is a historian because based on all the previous decisions, how India should act, what should be our stand on Ukraine-Russia war, what should be our stand towards America, what should be our stand towards Pakistan, all the decisions are taken based on the past. If there is no information about the past, how do you know who is a friend, who is an enemy? There is nothing available. So, like this, history does not only mean a small thing of what is there in your history textbook, but it is a very, very, very big subject, which includes a lot of things. Okay, and we say we speak about importance of memory. What is memory? What is memory? And what is remembrance of what? Of the past. What has happened? Right? You cannot have memory of what's going to happen tomorrow. It will be a prediction that you will not know what is going to happen. It will be a prediction at best. But memory means whatever has happened already, you will remember. So everything you remember is all past. It's all what you have remembered, right? So basically, when we say language learning, okay, when you're learning a new language, what is language learning? It's a lot of memory and some logic. So to be able to speak, to be able to write something, you need memory, which means history. So now if you start thinking from this point of view, everything that you do from morning to night is connected with history. Okay. And uh, when we think of history in a very broad sense, basically it can be defined as a study of the changes in time. It's a function of time, right? Whatever has happened in the past is history. So whatever changes have happened, whether it's in India, whether it's in Bangalore, whether it's in Kanakpura Road, or it's any other part of the world, across time, whatever has changed, that when we study, it becomes history. And when we start looking at the decisions we make, how we do something, any activity we take up, it's all what we have learned. And over and above what we have learned, we improvise, we do new things. But whatever we have learned is what is going to come to our rescue, right? All the learning. So any of you, whatever you have learned, all education or whatever you are learning now, it's all going to be something for your future. So everything that we know today is because of the past. Now, we depend so much on the past. Now, all of you are sitting here. Okay, for you to be sitting here in this seat and listening to me, it has taken the entire universe, all the people of all the world together for you to be sitting here. Now, for you to have been born, your parents should have met some point of time. They should have got married. Their parents should have met. Your grandfather's grandmother's parents should have met like this. Hundreds of people should have met at some appropriate exact moment. And then that some child was born, and then they grew up and they got married. They met some exact person like this. There is this kind of all these things together resulted in you being here. So when you look back and see how the whole universe has been responsible for you to be sitting here, then naturally you will develop little bit of gratitude that oh, I'm here because all these people have done like so many things and all sorts of activities happen for me to be here. So you will develop little bit of sense of gratitude about the past. Okay. So one of the things we learn is from history, one of the value of history is we feel grateful. Now, if your ancestors had some genetic problem, then you also would have had a problem. That's why they say first thing when we go to a doctor, they ask for family history. Is there anybody in your family who had diabetes, heart problem, cancer? So if there's some family history, so even to do with health, first they think what is the family history. Oh, grandfather had this problem, father had this problem, mother had this problem, grandmother had this problem. So therefore, it could be possible that it's a genetic problem. Like this, at every stage, if you think about it, you can't run away from your history. It's always there. Whether you like it or not, history is always there. Okay. And you take any subject, right? It could be science, it could be social science, or any traditional shastra like Nyaya or Alankara Shastra, Natya Shastra, any shastra you take, any subject of study. What are we actually studying? What somebody has done in the past. What is your textbook? It is something written by somebody who has taken, consolidated all the things that have been found in the past and condensed it and given it to you in a simple way. When you same thing when you study philosophy or literature, anything you study, it is something which has happened in the past that you are accessing and you are using for betterment today. It could be enjoyment, like you are listening to some music or you're reading some book, something you are getting enjoyment today. Now you are listening to some music. I know some of you are learning music. You are singing some Tyagaraja Kriti. It was composed some 200 years back, history. But you are enjoying it even today. You are reading some work of Shakespeare or Sherlock Holmes or some Kalidasa or Nachakatika, whatever you are reading and enjoying. It is written hundreds or thousands of years back. You are still able to connect. You are connecting with history again. So any subject you study, you are connecting with something which has happened in the past. Now you can start, when you think of history, you can first start with yourself. Each of you have something called personal history, right? All of you have personal history. You grew up in some, you were born in some place. Oh, I was born in this date. You celebrate your birthday, connecting with history. You grew up in some place and then your father got transferred or mother got transferred. You lived in some other place, went to some other school. Before this, you were in some other place. So it's your personal history. So older a person is, they'll have more and more personal history, right? You ask your grandmother or grandfather, they'll tell you some story when Bangalore you could get rice for 2 rupees or 1 rupee per kg. You used to walk 20 kilometers to go to school and without chappal and all the stories you have heard from your grandfather, grandmother, right? It's all history. So older a person gets, more personal history they have. And if somebody is very adventurous, they have traveled a lot, or they are in a very high position, they have met a lot of people, so they'll have more interesting stories to tell. But when you look at your own personal history, what does it teach you when you look back at your past? What do you learn when you think about your past? Oh, last year I was like this, 2 years back I was like that. What do you get when you think about your past? Should you think about your past or you should never think about your past? What do you get by thinking about your past?
The changes around.
The changes, you observe changes around you. When you first started coming here, it was empty road, something now full of traffic. You observe changes. Or the roads were not at all done, now suddenly roads are very good. Some changes around you. What else is the benefit of thinking back? What is the use of your memories? It gives you some happiness. Oh, I remember we used to go and play there, very nice. So, no, fine. Why else should you think about your personal history? You can correct your mistakes. What is that word in English? Contemplation or reflection, you say, right? You think about yourself. I did this. You after you finish the exam and you come. I don't know whether you have exams now in this school, but some in the traditional schools they have some exam. There's something called exam. They'll write one 3 hour paper like this. They will have a question paper. They'll be sitting in one room and you have to write all the answers. And then once you finish writing the answers and come out, you'll think, oh, what did I write? Did I write this correct answer? Something. What did I write? Let's see how much marks I will get. And when the result comes, you say, oh, I wrote this. Maybe that's why I got this mark, and so on. So when you look back, always you think about what are the mistakes you made, or you think about what are the right things you did, what are the correct things you have done. So you begin to think on how you can improve yourself. That's the whole process. So history teaches you reflection, to contemplation, to how you can make yourself better, how you can learn from the past. Similarly, you can extend it to your family. Sometimes your father, your mother, cousins, your uncle, aunt, where they grew up, how was the schooling that time, how was their childhood, or where did they travel, what did they do. So when you start asking your parents, grandparents, even if you don't ask, they'll tell you. That's a different thing. They'll be telling you. But you can learn from that. Oh, they did all these interesting things. And then you can construct the family history. Now, maybe somebody in your ancestor was very good in music, or very good in dance, or very good in painting. So somehow maybe they were got some interest in that. Because of that, we don't know. You may be able to connect like that. Or one of your ancestors moved from one place to another. They may have been living in a small village. They didn't have a possibility to earn money, so they may have migrated to little bigger towns. How did they migrate? Today you have a bus and flights and cars and everything. But how did they migrate? With a small bag of some one set of clothes and maybe a little bit of grains for the journey. How difficult it would have been for them to migrate. Today, if you want to go from here, not just from here to Europe or Africa or America, from here to Moon also you can go. We have got the technology. But for somebody 150 years back, when my ancestors moved from Tamil Nadu to Karnataka, how they would have come? It would have been a very difficult journey, and they would have had so many struggles. But they didn't have economic possibilities of earning money, so they moved to the Mysore Sanstana, the kingdom of Mysore. So, like this, when you think about your ancestors, what they did, what are the difficulties that they faced. Now, suddenly you say, "Oh my God, my school bag is very heavy." You won't complain because they would have, at the age of some 14, they would have walked some 500 kilometers with some so many things. And today, when you are just going from the house to the school bus carrying a little bit of weight, you will feel, you will know that it's not a big deal. But if you don't know the history, you will think this is the most difficult thing in the world is carrying my school bag from the house door to the school bus. So you now start seeing things in a bigger picture, bigger perspective. So then you feel your problems are very small. How to make your problem small? If you go very close to something, it appears big. But you take a step back and see the same thing, it appears very small. So history also teaches you to take your situation, your problems lightly, not to take it too seriously, not to get too troubled by it. Then also another thing is when you look back at the people and the kind of struggles that they faced in your own family. Because when somebody else, you may not have the connection, but my own father, my own mother, my own grandmother had to do so much of difficult work. Those days there was no mixie, no television, nothing. Everything had to be done physically. So morning, wake up at 5 in the morning and work till 10 in the night. Physical labor to raise some 10 kids. Those days, not like one or two, that 8, 9, 10 children, and everybody has to go to school and everybody has to be fed. So, how much of hard work? My grandmother, my grandfather, because that connection is there, you begin to feel that empathy for other people. This is also something we learn. This is a very simple thing. It's not about some history of India, history of the world, but our small little family history. When we start thinking, we develop all these values. Then, when we look at the kind of work that our ancestors have done, we feel that, oh, we are from this family which has done all these amazing things, and you also become more responsible. If you are just one person, if nobody knows you, okay, let's say nobody knows you, you are in some place, you do some mischief, nobody will bother. But let us say everybody knows you as so and so's son or so and so's daughter, you will be little scared to do mischief because, oh, they know who I am, they know my parents, so I should behave nicely. Why do you feel? Why do you do that? Because you value a family, you value family history. That if I do something wrong, then my family will get a bad name, and my family has a very good name. So all these things, when you know about the greatness of your ancestors, you also start behaving a little bit responsibly. I will give you a very silly example. Okay, we go on a lot of these road trips, right? We take the car and go. Some 4 or 5 people will go on a road trip. Let us go and some 2 days vacation. And invariably there will be some long stretch where there is no brake, nothing. This is we are driving in the wilderness. You want to relieve yourself. You say, hey, stop the car. I want to take a leak. What do? You stop the car, go and go find some bushes and urinate. But let us say you knew that some Ashwatha Vriksha. Let us say you knew the tree was the tree where Vivekananda was sitting some 200 years back. Will you urinate there? No, you will go somewhere else. Why? It's a tree. What's wrong with that? It's one more, it's like any other tree. But just the fact that this is Ashwatha Vriksha, or just the fact that there is some emotional connect, we want to move away from that. That means what? When we value something, we behave better. If we have that feeling of sacredness, we feel a little bit careful about things. If it's some notebook is lying there, some old notebook with some scribbling, I might just throw it, put it to the kabadi wala for paste. But if I knew it is something my grandfather's diary, I won't throw it to kabadi wala. I will keep it, preserve it. Oh, this is my grandfather's thing. It is somebody else's grandfather's diary, I will throw it to kabadi wala. It doesn't matter to me. But that kind of when we have some feeling of sacredness for something, then our behavior will change. There is a famous story, maybe you have all heard of it, I would like to repeat it many times. The story of the three workers. There is a huge construction site, and one person goes and finds one guy lifting a brick. Says, what are you doing? This guy is a very grumpy guy. Can't you see I am lifting a brick? He goes a little further. It's the same big construction site. Another guy is doing the same thing. What are you doing? Sir, I have to feed my family. I have 4 children. I'm working for my livelihood, so I'm doing some work. He goes further ahead in the same construction site and asks a guy who is doing the same work, what are you doing? Sir, I am part of historical movement. We are building a great temple and I am part of it. Exact same work all the three are doing, but the difference is in the attitude. One fellow thinks karma yen madadina kelsa ide. So another guy thinks, ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಹೊಟ್ಟೆ ಪಾಡೋ, he has resigned to his fate. The other person is imbuing something extraordinary to the same activity. So how will this person work when he feels that this is something extraordinary? I'm part of this great country which has given the world so much of knowledge. I am an Indian. When you feel that and you do your activity, as opposed to you feel what to do something. I've been assigned some work. I have to do it. So the attitude of doing the work changes completely when you see it from a bigger picture. That's also something history teaches us. Now, when we learn about all the great dynasties, when you go and visit some of the great Devalayas, the Varadishvara, some of the Velur, Halebeed, any of these things, when you look at that, so you feel so happy, so proud to be born in this country. There is an emotional connection with the past. There's so much of great things which you have done, and you also get identity. Oh, I am part of this culture which has done all these great things. I may have not done anything, but just the fact that I am part of this culture gives me a lot of value, right? Just like you may not be a great fellow, your brother may be great, but you say, I am so and so's brother, sir. He's a film star, he's a film star. We try to rub off the glory, right? But why do we do that? Because we want identities. When you have such a grand culture, then definitely you should be connecting with that because there's so much of identity we can get. And whether it is, even for example, when you, not just the, like I said, history is not just about some ancient past, even recent past, when you look at it, everybody uses history, whether it's a business person who's investing in the stock market. He looks at previous trends, how the stock market has behaved, and then makes the investment. It's also history. When you're studying science, Newton famously said, right, whatever I've seen is by standing on the shoulders of giants. Whatever past people have studied and learned, based on that, scientists develop further and further. So whether it's in art, whether it's in science, whether it's in business, or even government policy, the policy that the government makes for certain things, that is also based on the past. Any judgments is based on precedents. Some old judgment they will take, and based on that judgment, they will give new judgment. So everything in our life is related to the past.
Machine learning is also history.
Machine learning also, whatever you feed it, it is going to give you based on that. Without feeding anything, computer cannot generate. In fact, humans also cannot generate just like that. Unless there is some background information, it's not possible to generate out of thin air. And Now, if somebody thinks about the pandemic, okay, oh my God, I've never seen something. But in 1918, there was a Spanish flu, which was even bigger problem than pandemic. It killed many more people. It was a much bigger problem. But our ancestors dealt with that and we survived that. So like this also will survive. So somebody who doesn't know about the past will be taking all the present day problems as a very, very big thing. Will not be able to deal with it. The moment you put this thing in a bigger perspective and see that all these things have already happened in the past, this is one more such extension of that, or it's a different manifestation of that, then suddenly we begin to look at things with more calmness and balance. And basically, study of history is a study of all the knowledge and wisdom of the past. Right? So if you study history, if you think about history and you know the past, it's very good. But what happens if you don't know about the past? What is the danger of not knowing history? The danger is you start taking bad decisions. If you don't know the past, now you start taking bad decisions. So anything you do, whether it's in the government, whether it's in the courts, whether it's in business, whether it's in sports, anything what you are doing today is all dependent on the past. So if you don't know about the past, if you have not studied the past, you become like a blind person walking ahead. It's like you are just trying to struggle to find out what's going to come. Whereas if you have the knowledge of the past, you can take better decisions, right? Now let us discuss a little bit about the Indian conception of history. In India, we believe that time is, like I told you, that basically history is a function of time. In India, we believe that time is cyclical. Because if you think about it, what is determining time? How do you know that time is moving forward? What are the basic parameters for you to know time? Let's say you don't have a watch. How will you know that time is going forward? Sunrise and sunset, right? So sunrise, now the sun sets, you know it's evening. In the night, you go to sleep. Then let's say you don't have a watch for a long time. How do you know that 1 year has passed or a few months have passed? Seasons. So seasons. So what happens to season? Seasons are cyclical. Right? Now it's going to be summer. After 1 year, again it's going to be summer. Again summer. After 6 months, it's going to be spring. Another 1 year, 6 months is going to spring again. I mean autumn. Another 6 months. So seasons are cyclical. Day and night is cyclical. Today now sun will set. Again tomorrow it will sunrise. So it's cyclical. So when you look at nature, you observe time to be cyclical. So, unlike in the West, in India, time was perceived to be cyclical, which is why we had the concept of the Kalpa, where there will be the creation from Brahma, and then there will be Krita Yuga, then there will be Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Kali Yuga, then there will be Praya, again new sriti will happen, again, like this. So, this whole concept of cyclical, which is also why there was a belief in the rebirth. So, you have a past birth, you die, again you are reborn, you have another birth, you die, reborn, like this cycle of birth and death until you get moksha when you don't have any more rebirth. So the concept is this, whether you believe it or not is different. I'm just saying the concept of Indian thing is cyclical. So when they saw everything in a cyclical way, they realized that whether it is good or bad, whether you are having something which is fun, which is not fun, it will come to an end and it will go forward. So now you are having a difficult time, don't worry. If there's some good time will come. You are having a very good time, don't worry, difficult time will come. Okay, so it's a cyclical thing. So there will be this whole thing of good and bad will happen if you are comfortable until you reach a stage where you are mentally very balanced and you take good and bad equally, then there won't be good and bad anymore. If you stop taking things as this is good, this is bad, and you are mentally stable, you have reached a point where you take everything in the same way, then you won't have any trouble. But it's very difficult to do that. And another thing with Indian history, Indian way of looking, what is the word for history in Sanskrit?
Itihaasa.
What does Itihaasa mean?
It was like
It was like that. It happened so. Itihaasa. It happened thus. Now, the Indian way of looking at Itihasa was to look at the value what we can get rather than the dry facts. Okay. What is the difference between fact and value? Or one the great professor Hiriyana from Mysore, he is a professor of philosophy, he has very nicely given this distinction between fact and value. If you understand this, it becomes easy to understand Indian history. Fact is something which is true, which is there. This mic is here, it is a fact. Or there is water in your water bottle, it's a fact. That water has two molecules of hydrogen and one molecule of oxygen, right? H2O. These are all facts. But value is something when it becomes a part of our experience. When you feel thirsty, you take the water and drink it and you quench your thirst, then it becomes a value. What was a fact? That this is water, it is crystal clear, it is tasteless, odorless, colorless. If you cross some 100 degrees, it will evaporate. All these things you have learned. These are all facts. These are all correct. But when you experience the water, then it becomes value. Okay. Is there any doubt between what is fact and what is value? You're clear about it. So more than the fact, they emphasize on value. So that is why, which are the two Itihasas in India? Famous Itihasa.
Ramayana Mahabharata.
Ramayana Mahabharata, right? Now, when you look at Ramayana Mahabharata and you look at your history textbook, do you see a difference? Do you see a difference? Ramayana Mahabharata and your history textbook? The difference is Ramayana Mahabharata focus on the values of history, what we can learn. Our history textbook today, or generally the Western history, focuses more on facts and figures. This year, this person did this. This is what happened after this. This is the political history of some country. So facts are important, and we also have such fact-based histories like Rajatarangini. You would have heard about Kalhana's Rajatarangini, who wrote about the history of Kashmir. So he also used all the things like inscriptions and local folklore, just like how a modern historian would do. He did some 1,000 years back. So we also have fact-oriented history, but the main way of India looking at history is understanding the values. So what are the things that the ancients did? How they dealt with certain things? What we can learn from them? How we can avoid making the same mistakes? When it is told in the form of a story, when it is told in the form of some kind of emotional content, it's easier for us to understand. It's so easy for a child if you tell some story from Mahabharata for the child to remember. Whereas if I tell you a list of 25 wars that were fought in India and all the dates, it is very hard to remember. And nowadays, you will ask me why should you remember all this? You just go to Google, it tell you. Right? All the information is available. So more than information, what is important is the value, the learning from the past. So therefore, they gave us this beautiful module of Ramayana Mahabharata, so everybody can connect with the values. It's easier to remember a story than to remember some facts. So when we study Ramayana Mahabharata, what we are actually doing is we are getting some very nice models for our inner culturing. When we think about the characters, the difficulties that they faced, the challenges that they had, the accomplishments that they did, when we look at that and when we see that, kind of put that as a backdrop to our life problem and see this, then we are able to deal with it better. So this is the way that we in India for so many years continued the history. And more than, even for example, like Shrisha was mentioning, you are reading Nyapaka Chitrashale. Even in Nyapaka Chitrashale, what D.V. Gundappa does, he doesn't say K. A. Krishna Swami Iyer was born on some 13th January something. Or he does not talk about some, he studied his MSc in some place, or he studied school here, or he was working in this particular office. He talks about some interesting episode from the life of that person which stays with us. If I read that Sir M. Vishweshwaraya completed some degree in some year, I may not remember these details. But the fact that he used to personally reply to all the people who wrote some birthday greetings when he was 98 years old, even now I feel as if I have seen that. Although Vishweshwaraya died many years before I was born, when reading Nyapam Chitrashala, I feel I was sitting in that room with Vishweshwaraya when he was replying. So these are emotional episodes which stay with us. Now, when you look at the world from the point of view of time, okay, there's only the present. There is no such thing as past or future. The reality is only now, right now, present. Past is gone already, it's over, and future is yet to come. So always when you look from the point of view of time, there is only present. There is no future, there is no past. But when you look at from the point of view of wisdom, there is only past. There is no present, there is no future. Whatever wisdom we have is only from the past. It's only getting added more and more, but it's all in the past. So if we want to go to the future, we need the past. Just like if you are walking in a dense forest in the middle of the night, you have a torch with you. So the history is like a torch that helps you see where you are going in the future. So this is the importance of history. And let us open it up for some questions. Yes? Anybody can ask.
ಮಕ್ಕಳಾಗಲಿ ಅಥವಾ ಪೇರೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಆಗಲಿ ಹಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಗೆ ಒಂದು ಎಂಟ್ರಿ ತಗೋಬೇಕು ವೇರ್ ಟು ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಡಿಪೆಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಅಪಾನ್ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಹೌ ಟು ಅಲೈನ್ ಬುಕ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಅದರ್ ಕೋರ್ಸಸ್.
ಇವಾಗ ಉದಾಹರಣೆಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟೋ ಇತಿಹಾಸಜ್ಞರು ಹಿಸ್ಟಾರಿಯನ್ಸ್ ಶ್ರೀಕಂಠ ಶಾಸ್ತ್ರಿ ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್, ಅವರ ಆಸಕ್ತಿ ಬೆಳೆದಿದ್ದೇ ಅವರ ಫ್ಯಾಮಿಲಿ ಹಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಯನ್ನ ಹುಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗಿ ಅವರ ಸೊಂಡೆಕೊಪ್ಪನಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಗಿತ್ತು, ಅದು ಯಾವ ಶಾಸನ ಏನಿತ್ತು, ಆ ಫ್ಯಾಮಿಲಿ ಹಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಯನ್ನೇ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಒಂದಷ್ಟು ಅನ್ವೇಷಣೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಎಷ್ಟೋ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ನಾವು ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಬಂದ್ವಿ, ನಮ್ಮ ತಂದೆ ತಾಯಿ ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಬಂದ್ರು, ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಯಾವ ತರ ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಇತ್ತು. This is very simple for anybody to figure out. Just speak with your grandfather, grandmother, any elderly person in your house, ask them. And this is one question which will make them very happy. You ask anybody about their past, they will be thrilled to tell you. You have to ask them to stop. That kind of energy they will have. So just ask the elders in your house something about specific things. Don't just not an open-ended question. Specific things. ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಬಂದ್ರು, ಅವ್ರ ತಂದೆ ತಾಯಿ ಹೇಗಿದ್ರು, ಅವ್ರ ತಂದೆ ಜೊತೆ ಅವರ ರಿಲೇಶನ್ಶಿಪ್, ಅವ್ರ ತಾಯಿ ಜೊತೆ ಅವ್ರ ರಿಲೇಶನ್ಶಿಪ್ ಹೇಗಿತ್ತು, ಈ ತರ ಒಂದಷ್ಟು ನಮ್ಮ ಕುಟುಂಬದಲ್ಲೇ ಒಂದಷ್ಟು ನಾವು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಮಾಡಿ ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಬಂದ್ರು, ಯಾವ ತರ ಆನ್ಸೆಸ್ಟ್ರಿ ಇದೆ ನಮಗೆ, ವಾಟ್ ವರ್ ಮೈ ಗ್ರ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಫಾದರ್ ಗ್ರೇಟ್ ಗ್ರ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಪೇರೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಡೂಯಿಂಗ್, ವೆನ್ ವರ್ ದೇ ಬಾರ್ನ್, ವೆನ್ ಡಿಡ್ ದೇ ಡೈ, ವಾಟ್ ವಾಸ್ ದ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದರ್ ಲೈವ್ಲಿಹುಡ್, ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಈಸಿ ವೇ ಟು ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್. You don't need any book, you don't need anything. It's just a question of asking somebody, engaging somebody with some conversation and learning from it. Many times we think that the knowledge can come only from books or only from some scholars or some big people. Knowledge is everywhere. We can learn from everybody around us. All around us we have people, they know something we don't know. It is very, very, very unlikely that I know everything that somebody else knows. It's almost impossible. There will be something unique. Now, all of you, if I sit with you for 10 minutes, I am very sure you know something which I don't know. I'm extremely certain that not just some general information, some very valuable thing that you will know which I don't know. But I must have that mindset to listen and learn and treat other people around me as sources of knowledge. Because unless you ask people, they may not tell you. For example, there may be a colleague in your office, maybe working with them, writing code together or whatever you are thinking, but they may in their free time maybe reading some, seriously pursuing some other hobby which they may not discuss about. Unless you probe it, unless you find out, you will never know that somebody near you knows about something. So very simple thing is, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮನೆಯಲ್ಲಿರೋರು, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಫ್ರೆಂಡ್ ತಂದೆ ತಾಯಿ ಅವರ ಅಜ್ಜ ಅಜ್ಜನ ಜೊತೆ ಮಾತಾಡೋದು, ಕೇಳೋದು, ಯಾವ ತರ ಇತ್ತು, ಹೇಗೆ ಏನು, ಒಂದಷ್ಟು ತಿಳುವಳಿಕೆ ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಒನ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್. ಮತ್ತೆ ಕೆಲವೊಂದು ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲರ್ ಹಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿ ಅಂತ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಇವಾಗ ಸೀರಿಯಸ್ ಹಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕಮಿಂಗ್ ಟು ದ ಫೀಲ್ಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಹಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿ ಇಟ್ಸೆಲ್ಫ್, ನಾ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದು ವಿಜ್ಞಾನದಲ್ಲಾಗ್ಲಿ ಕಲೆನಲ್ಲಾಗ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಕಡೆ ಇತಿಹಾಸ ಇದೆ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಇತಿಹಾಸ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕ್ ಕ್ಷೇತ್ರದಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಪಾಪ್ಯುಲರ್ ಹಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿ ಅಂತ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ಈ ಇತಿಹಾಸದ ಕಥೆಗಳು. ಸೊ ವೆರಿ ಗುಡ್ ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ ಟು ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅಮರ್ ಚಿತ್ರಕಥಾ, Chandamama, these kind of, I don't know whether you get Chandamama, but Amal Chitrakatha is still available, I think, many of them. So read some of those things, which a lot of nice sketches, it tells a story. Then try to find out about the history of your city, your locality. Many of the times, in Bangalore itself, there are some very old temples, but people do not have visited these temples or monuments. Like my parents' house is near MG Road. And there is one very old Someshwara temple, which is, I think, one of the oldest temples in Bangalore. but hard. Many people don't know about it. Even I know because it was in my neighborhood. Otherwise, I would not have known. There is a temple in Bangalore, for example, dedicated to Yudhishthira, Dharmaraya temple, Draupadi temple is there. But we may not have heard about it. So, like this, when you explore your own city, so it's not always that you look at some Google or some book or something. Just open the mind and look around, step out and see. That itself is learning about the past. Then there are, like I said, some popular history, like I think Land of Seven Rivers, and there are some of these nice books for children. Even your Bharata Bharati books are very, very good. Then there is the Bharata Kshatriya Parampara, a very nice book in Kannada about the tradition of heroism in India. ಎಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಪುಸ್ತಕ ಇದೆ ಪುಸ್ತಕ ಓದೋರಿಗೆ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಸಿಗತ್ತೆ ಇದು ತೊಂದರೆ ಇಲ್ಲ ಆದ್ರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕಿಂತನೂ ಮುಂಚೆ it's about how you start looking at the world because once you know you want information you can get it from books you can get it from elders you can get it from scholars you can get it from YouTube you can get it from anywhere knowledge can come from anywhere even YouTube has a lot of things very interesting things but first important thing is for you to have that mindset to see the past. Now you know, right? I'm sure you're convinced it's important to study history, right? Any doubt about that? Anybody still has any problem with that or opposition to that? So now you know that it's very useful to study history. Then you start looking at how you can approach it. And then it's very difficult for everybody to know about all the periods of history in all the countries, all the places. It's very difficult. So you start taking something which is interesting to you. Now maybe you would have traveled to some, I'm sure you would have traveled to some different temples. There will be some places that are very attractive to you. Like you go to Belur Halebedu, you may be very attracted by that very intricate designs of Hoysala sculptures. Somebody else may go to Ellora and may be impressed by the huge size of these sculptures. Somebody may go to Badami or Pattalakal, they may be impressed by something. So like this, each of you may be impressed by some specific thing. So in that, how to find more information? Go look at books which are there. And then, especially in history, there are so many allied subjects also in history, right? You have epigraphy, which is the study of inscriptions, stone inscriptions, which we will be having a session later today, I think. Different stone inscriptions. Then there are copper plate charters are there. Then there are archaeological excavations. Those are sources of our history. Then we have many literary works. When we look at some book which was written in 12th century, 10th century, we know about the lifestyle of that time. So there are literary evidences. Then there are astronomical evidence. Like these multiple evidences are there. So based on your interest, you can go deeper into some period of history or some particular allied branch of history. So there are a lot of opportunities to learn, and especially now with so much of information available, what is more important is to be clear about what you want. Otherwise, it's like going into one of these supermarkets, right? You will get lost. You get everything from shoes to clothing to books to everything you will get in one place. But if you don't know what you want, you will just be going around in circles. You would have spent 5 hours without knowing what you want, where you want. Internet is like that. So you should be very clear what you are looking for. Then you will get the information. Any other questions? Yes.
ನೀವು ಆಗಲೇ ಹೇಳಿದ ಹಾಗೆ ಒಂದು ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನ ಕಟ್ತಿರ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ನೀವು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗಿ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಮೂರು ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಉತ್ತರ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಈಗ ಮೊದಲನೇ ಇತಿಹಾಸ ಪುಸ್ತಕ ತಗೊಂಡು ನಾವು ಓದಿದ್ರೆ ನಮಗೆ ಜಿಗುಪ್ಸನೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಮೊದಲನೇ ಉತ್ತರ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೆ ಏನೋ ಬರ್ತೀನಿ